Okay, so welcome to this first video in making our very first Scratch program. Um, so hopefully you've downloaded Scratch, and when you've opened it up, your screen probably looks like this, or pretty similar to this, I hope. Um, so this is the Scratch interface. Um, so I should say, before I get anywhere else, I'll say, obviously this video is going to be posted on Canvas. Also, the program that we write together here, I'll also post on Canvas, and I'll show you how to save stuff and load stuff as well at the end of this little video. Um, but I'll save the programs, all of these programs. I think I have about 5 or 6 that we'll do together, sort of short videos. Um, I'll save all of those. So those will also be posted on Canvas. So you don't have to be doing this along with me is what I'm trying to say. But if you want to, you can. So if you want to, here's the video. You can sort of maybe put me in maybe the left half of your screen. And then if you've got Scratch open, maybe you could put it in the right half of your screen or something like that. So if you do want to follow along and also be doing the things that we're doing and, making sure it works for you too, feel free to do that as well. Okay, but I will save the things we create together, so you don't need to be building this up so that you can use it at the end. It'll, yeah. Uh, okay, so right, so here we are. So this is Scratch. So the things I mentioned in the intro video are all here. This is this version 2.0. They've just moved things around a little bit, but these are all the same features. So um, the stage is here. This is the stage. This is the action. This is actually where your game or whatever you're going to make is going to be played out. So it's only in this box here is all that matters, so to speak, in terms of this is what if you were to upload this to iTunes or to the App Store and try to sell it, it would just be what's in here that people would play. Right. Okay. So that's the stage. Down here is the list of characters, or as Scratch calls them, sprites. Right now there's only one sprite, which is the cat. The cat is the icon or the logo of Scratch. So he's down here. Here are all of the pieces that I mentioned in the intro video. They've split this up into 10 categories. I think they actually just sort of broke some of the 8 categories that were in the video out into more than one. Like events and control, I think were in the same tab in the old Scratch, but now they've made it into 2, so whatever. Point is all the puzzle pieces are here, and you can scroll down, and there's a few more off the screen. Those are all here, and then on the right is where we're going to write our script. So in other words, this is the character cat, and this is what its script is to do, which right now is nothing. So there's no actions happening, so it's not going to do anything. So all right, so in order to make the cat actually do stuff, we have to tell the cat what to do. And if I want other characters, I'm going to import them here. And you can import anything. Anything that's a file, it's an image file. You can import yourself into the game, or a celebrity, or whatever. As long as you have an image file, those can also be made into sprites. Or you can Photoshop and put the face put your face on the cat's body, or whatever you want to do. Okay. But right now we'll just work with the cat just to get familiar with the different commands that are here. So, right. So let's try some stuff, right? So this is mostly going to be you playing around and experimenting with different things. Most of the things hopefully read pretty well, sort of in English. I should say just one quick tidbit about the stage here. Look down here. You can see an X coordinate and a Y coordinate, right? And look at my mouse as I move it around. Obviously, the X and Y coordinates are changing as I move it around, right? I'll stop it in a few spots so you can see, right? So the stage is actually split into an X and Y axis. Remember, Y goes up and down, and X goes left and right. And so we're going to use that, or that's sort of how we're going to sort of chop up this screen, the stage. And we could, for example, go to a specific spot on the screen, or do movements, either in terms of actually moving or angles, based on the idea that there's an XY axis under this guy, or under the stage. And each spot on the stage has an X, Y coordinate, just like it would on a graph. Okay? So just sort of keep that in mind that's under here. And roughly, just for your perspective, this stage goes from about negative 200 or so, up to positive 200 or so, right? It's actually 180, I guess, for the y's, and it's a little more than that for the x's. But roughly speaking, those are the dimensions of the stage. Okay, so let's make some things happen. So these are all the pieces, right? And again, there's millions of them. And just try them, right? Honestly, if you just play around and just say, I'm just going to try all of these or some of these or whichever ones sound interesting, try them. If you want to just sort of say, well, what does this do? You can try it just here in the palette. And you could just, if you double click on any piece, it'll do whatever it says. The other way to do it is to drag it over here into the script. If you're ready to kind of put it in your script, you could do that. But since we're just playing around with it, I'm just going to do this. So I'm just going to double click on some of these. So I'm double clicking, right? And of course, not surprisingly, it's moving the cat 10 steps. Now you might say, well, why is it moving it that way and not up or left and right? Well, that's where the X and Y thing comes into play. If I change the number here, I just double clicked on that 10. Obviously, if I change it to a bigger number, like 50, you might imagine it's going to make it move, the cat move more steps. So see, a much bigger jump. And you say, well, wait a minute, what if I wanted to move to the left? Well, use your math intuition, right? If moving to the right is a positive number, then moving to the left is probably a negative number. So if I change that to negative 50, it'll sort of moonwalk backwards towards the middle. Okay, so that's move. Now you might say, how do I move it up and down? Okay, well, maybe we have to think about that. But the one thing I'll say about the move function is that it's moving in the direction that it's facing. So right now the cat is facing to the right, and so it's going to move. If I do a positive number, let me put that back to 10, right? It's going to move to the right by 10. If I put a negative number, which I won't do, but I had it in there a second ago, it's going to move to the left. If I wanted it to move up or move down, you move him back to the middle of the screen, you have to turn him. So that's what these next two features do, and these are pretty self-explanatory, right? You can either turn clockwise or counterclockwise, and you can fill in by how much you want it to turn. So if I want him to maybe walk up, sort of north, so to speak, I might say, well, I'm going to turn him this way, so I'm going to click this. And as you can see, he's spinning, 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 and spinning. Okay, I don't know if that's exactly due north, but I think so. And now if I hit move 10 steps, he's going to move up. So whatever direction he's facing, that's the direction he's going to move. Okay, and if I wanted to move down, I would do a negative number of steps to move him back. And if I want him to rotate back to where he started, I could probably just spin him this way and back to the beginning, right? Now, if I wanted to do, rather than spinning, you can point in a certain direction. So in other words, instead of spinning by a certain number of degrees, and obviously I could have changed these degrees to different numbers, you can say point in a certain direction. Now, 90 degrees is to the right. And as you can probably, it tells you, oh, good. If I wanted him to face up, I could say point to 0 degrees. And then if I double click on that, he spins to north. If I want him to point down, I could go to 180. So this probably reminds you a little bit of trig, right? That there's a circle and the natural orientation is to the right. But if you can spin around 360 degrees, or I guess you could do negative degrees if you want to spin the other way, that's another option. You could have it point towards something, right? So I could say point towards the mouse, which I don't know if this is going to work. Okay, it does, right? So right now the mouse is sort of here, right? So let me put him back to where he was, right? The mouse is here, wherever it is. So if I say point to the mouse, it's going to point to the mouse. Now it doesn't keep pointing to the mouse, right? I could make it do that if I wanted to. Or I can pick other options. I'm not sure what else is loaded in here, or just mouse pointer. But You can import some other options for where it might point towards. Okay. In terms of moving, rather than saying move a certain number of steps, you could say go to a specific spot. So I could say go to x equals 100 and y equals 100. And that should be sort of up here somewhere, right? And if I double click on that, now he moves to that spot. You could say go to the mouse, which I think he'll get stuck on the edge here if I do that, but okay, sure. Now another thing you can do is there's a glide feature. Now the glide feature is both good and bad. So glide, as you might suggest. So what happened here? Let me double click, right? He jumps, right? So if I say go to a spot, it's immediate, right? But if you say glide, as you might imagine, glide is going to say, well, glide, right? In other words, slowly, in however many seconds you want it to take, move to that spot. So if I double click on this, this is going to say glide in 1 second to 0, 0, which is right in the middle. So let's click on that. And as you can see, he glides there. You can put in any point you want. You can say glide to negative 200 and 100. And he'll glide there. You could glide fast or glide slowly. I could say go there in 0.1 seconds, which is, well, that was really fast, right? Or you can glide more slowly. Glide, you might use glide, but glide is a little, it looks good, but when a character is gliding, it's hard for it to interact with other things, so it's a little hinky sometimes. All right, other things you can do. I don't want to go through all of this, but other things you can do is you can change the x-coordinate by a number. In other words, let me see. Let me do a negative number here, negative 10. This is just going to make the x-coordinate change by negative 10, which should go to the left by 10, right? Or you could set the x-coordinate to a number, or you could just change the y-coordinate by something. Maybe I'll say negative 20. That should move it down. Okay, right, so fine, you could do that. Bouncing is going to be important. I can't show you that just yet because he's not on the edge, so he's not going to bounce, but I'll show you that. I don't even know what that is. Okay, so let's not even bother with that. Okay, so those are the main motion pieces that you can use. Let me put him back to the beginning. All right. We'll maybe go to the looks thing in the next one. One more tab that I'll just show you is to say, so I obviously don't want to write a program just based on having to click off these things. Actually, I still have nothing over here. Remember, this is our program. So I don't have anything over there. So I want to grab these pieces and move them over here and say, oh, do these things at the appropriate time rather than just randomly just picking shit, right? So, okay, let's say we're writing a story about a cat who's a character in a game. Well, the cat right now, he's got no script. There's nothing, he's not doing anything. So I might say, well, I don't know, what's one of the most basic things he should probably be able to do is like run left and run right. Probably maybe when I hit the right arrow or when I hit the left arrow. So I'm going to do that. Now we know that this is, I'm going to grab that piece, and then I'm going to grab one more of it. And I'm going to say maybe move negative 10. And as we experimented before, right, if I click on this, oh, right, so the other place you can double click on stuff is over here in the script to check it. You don't have to do it from here. You can just pull it over here and then try it, right? So I'm double clicking. So move 10, move 10. Oh, you can just single click. Oh, okay, even better. And then left, I could do with that, right? Okay, but this is silly, right? I shouldn't have to say click on the right piece in order to make it happen, right? I should be able to say something like, well, maybe when I hit the right arrow, that's when I should move to the right, and when I hit the left arrow, I should move to the left, right? So for that, I have to say, all right, well, so when do I want these things to happen? Now, as you notice, there's a little notch up here, which is saying, a timing mechanism could be put there in order to say when to do this. So if you go to the Events tab, this is where you're going to do sort of your timing of when do you want stuff to happen. You can see most of these pieces say when blah, 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 do stuff, right? So if I grab this second piece here, when space is pressed, grab this and pull it over here. There's a couple things I can do with this. One, I can change the keyboard key to anything you want that you see on the list here, right? So if I want to say I'm going to move right, I probably want to say when the right arrow is pressed. So pick that. And then in order to say I want to link these two, you can see what it's begging you to do, right? Snap them together. So grab this, and you can see it kind of lights up. It's going to snap it. All right, I can move the whole thing down now if I want. So what does this now say? This says, when the right arrow is pressed, move 10 steps in the direction it's facing. So now if I go on my keyboard and I hit the right arrow, right, he moves to the right. Now if I hit the left arrow, nothing's happening. Oh wait, that's right, because I have to say, so let me grab one more of these and snap it in place here. And if I change that to, whoops, left arrow, now what does my script say? So the script for the cat says, when the right arrow is pressed, move 10. When the left arrow is pressed, move negative 10. So now if I'm hitting right and left arrows, left arrow, left 10, right arrow, to the right 10. Okay, not a huge accomplishment, but hey, there it is, right? At least the cat does something now. Now he's not doing something all the time, right? He's just doing stuff when I hit the arrow keys. But that's probably the feature of your game, right? That you want to be able to move your your characters, right? So, okay, so a little script like that is all you would need in order to say, do those basic things. All right. Now let's see. Where else should he maybe be able to move? Well, maybe how about up and down? Right. Right now, if I hit the up key or the down arrow, nothing happens because I haven't said what's supposed to happen. So, all right. Well, in some games, right, and maybe in your game, you're going to have the sort of idea that the cat is running, and maybe instead of moving up, he's maybe going to have to jump over things, right? You've played games like that, right, where you're running, and then an object comes across the screen, and you have to jump, right? So let's see if you can figure that out. So maybe I want to use the up arrow to mean jump. Now, it could mean jump straight up, or it could mean sort of jump and go to the right, I guess, right? But in any case, okay, let's see. So let me grab this, which is going to be what I do when I hit the up arrow, is I want to jump. Okay, so I have to think about, okay, how do I simulate jumping? Well, let me go back to the motion pieces. So what happens when you jump? Well, you sort of go up and you come down, I guess, right? And if it's just going to jump straight up, I would just need to say basically, I'll do it sort of artificially, right? I want to basically do that, right? I want to say, when I hit the up arrow key, make the Y value go up and then maybe make it come down. Okay? So I have options here. I say, all right, I could try to sort of do it all at once, I guess, which would be to say I could move, I could maybe change the Y value. And then since I don't want to probably stay up there, I should maybe change it back. Right? So what would that say? When the up arrow is pressed, move up 10 and then move down 10. But let's see what happens when I do that now. So I'm going to hit the up arrow. Uh-oh, right? So it sort of appears as though nothing happened, right? The left and the right still work. But when I hit up, you're like, oh no, it doesn't do that. It does do that. The problem is that it's doing it very, very quickly. So it's moving me up 10, believe it or not. So I'm hitting the up arrow. And it's moving me up 10 and then moving me down 10 real quick. Okay, so there's some ways to fix that. One thing I could do is I could put in a pause, or I could put in a wait. So if I go to control here, there's a piece called wait. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to wait this many seconds. So if it's doing it too quickly. So maybe if I put the wait in between them, that might be better. So I'm going to drag this piece, and it should let me snap it into where I want it to be. Okay, if you kind of mess up this snapping business, just sort of start over and you should be okay. So now if I do the up key, okay, it's subtle. Maybe I should put a larger number than 10, maybe 50. Right? Okay, so now when I hit the up key, up, down, right? And it takes 1 second, I think, that he's waiting up there. All right, and that's not terrible, right? That kind of makes, so now, right, I can go left, I can go right, I can jump. But you might say, that's kind of hinky, right? That's not really how you jump, because in particular, I shouldn't just magically be there. So this is a place I'm going to say, all right, you know what, maybe that isn't quite what I want. So if you want to delete something, just drag it back over here into any of them and it'll just delete it. I think if you probably right click on it, you can probably delete it that way too. Say, that's not really what I wanted. Maybe I do want to use this glide thing, because the glide seems to sort of be, a reasonable function. It looked kind of good when I did it, right? So when the up arrow is pressed, now I have to say, where do I want it to be though? Right. So I have to give it an X and a Y spot. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's sort of dependent on where I am, I guess, right? So this maybe is the first case where I want to say, all right, if I want to glide, if I want to use the glide thing to say go up and then go back down, right? I might say, well, I need to say where should it go? Well, it's kind of based on where it starts. So something I might need to be able to do then is say, all right, so rather than typing in specific numbers, right, because I don't know those, I don't know specifically where I'm supposed to go, but I do want to sort of stay in the same X position, but I want to make my Y maybe go up by 50, like we did before. So if I want to say that, you don't have to put numbers in here. As long as you put numerical things in here, I'm okay. So one thing you might notice is that you have an option down here to say, I have this piece, which is the X position, whatever your X position currently is. So if I grab this and pull it, it'll let me drop that into the X spot. Remember, I'm not really moving my X, I'm just moving my Y, right? Now, if I put Y position in for Y, it's not going to move anywhere because it's just going to say glide to wherever you are. So instead, I want to say, well, maybe I want to do what? Y position plus 50? So that's maybe where I need some math. So go under operators, and math is here. So I can add two things together by grabbing this first piece. So grab that. And I'm going to, I could load it up first, I guess. So maybe I'll just drop it right there for a second and go back to motion. So if I want to say move up 50 and then down 50, I could say, all right, so I'm going to grab, where am I with Y's? That's my first argument. And then I want to say plus. Now this is what I could say is maybe 50. Okay? And if I drop this whole thing into that spot, which sometimes you have to kind of play with it a little bit here to make it do it. There it is. Okay, just wait till it lights up. If I drop it, and it'll fall off the screen. So maybe just move that over a little bit. Okay, it took it. You will have to sort of mess around a little bit with your view here. That sometimes sort of goes off the screen, but you can scroll over. Or you could zoom out or zoom in if you want a smaller view to be able to see everything. But anyway, okay. So maybe this seems okay. When up arrow is pressed, take a second to glide to the same X position, but to your Y position plus 50. So let's try that. So if I hit, so I'm hitting right, and now I want to jump, so I hit up. And I say, oh, I forgot to come down though, right? All right. So coming down should be pretty similar, right? So if you want to, now what you would say like in Word or something is you want to cut and paste this, right? Because you kind of want to do almost the same thing. And the good thing is that you can cut and paste here too. So if I grab this, let me just pull it off for a second. Because that was, get off. If you right click on something, just like you can ask for a duplicate, right? So I'm going to say that. All right, so now I got two of them. So let me put that one back in its place. And in order to say move down, rather than doing Y plus 50, I think I just want to do Y minus 50, right? So this is going to say glide for 1 second to the up position, and then glide back down. Okay, so let me pull him back down to earth and say, all right, so I'm playing, and I'm running, and I'm running, and I'm running, and I want to jump, so I hit up, glide, glide. That's pretty good. If you want it to be faster or more pronounced, change your change these two numbers over here if you want it to be a higher jump. And if you want it to happen faster or slower, change the amount of time. Okay? Now, if you want to say, well, you know what, the jump shouldn't just be straight up and straight down. He should also maybe move forward. Then you can do a similar thing, but do it with the x position too, right? I could say, okay, do x position plus 20, and then maybe another 20 here, right? So you could do that, right? So play around with this, right, to make it kind of how you want. If you can think it, I know this is gonna sound really lame, but if you can think it, you can do it. So if there's something you want to happen, you can probably make it happen. You just have to sort of think about, well, okay, what specifically needs to change? So if you wanted this to be a bigger jump, which I guess I kind of do, let me change those to hundreds, right? Okay, that to me seems a little bit better, and maybe that was a little slow. So maybe I'll change these each to, half of a second, so 0.5. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so cat running, not too bad. Running left, running right, but you might say, well, wait a minute. I don't have anything for down, but maybe that's reasonable. Maybe down should be duck or something like that. Okay, well, I don't have that. I'm not sure how to do that, so I might have to think about that. But maybe just one glaring thing right now that is not great is that when I run to the right, he doesn't really look like he's actually running. And moreover, when I run to the left, shouldn't he sort of like turn around, like, face left? So I want to show you how to add costume changes in order to make your character look a little more maybe realistic. And these are the sorts of probably little things that I'm not going to say you need to do every time, but these are the sorts of things that are going to make your game look better, and I promise will earn you more points, is to, try to sort of handle, well, what doesn't quite look right? So I might say two issues. One, he's just sort of gliding to the right rather than looking like he's actually running. Maybe there's something I can do about that. And when he goes left, I kind of feel like I want him to spin and be facing left, right? All right, so let's see if we can make those things happen. So one thing that's true about your sprites is that you can edit. Maybe I'll show you. Well, you can make new. Okay, these options here are for you to make new sprites, either ones that are already part of the library, of which there are many, many, many characters. You can paint your own. You might use this, importing a sprite from a file. That can just be like a photo, or you can just right on the spot take an image with your laptop camera if you are the person that's going to be in the game. So that's how you would maybe make a new sprite. But for each sprite, like we have the cat right now, there are other attributes that we might be able to use. So, it's over here now. Sorry. Costumes. So click on. So we're on the cat still, and these are the scripts for the cat, and they're still working. Right. I can move left and right and do my jumping thing. But if you want to also do other options for your character besides just the commands, costumes are another option, which, again, I know this is all supposed to be sort of like you're putting on a play, right? So costume changes are also something you might do. Now, the cat is already preloaded with another option here, which is he has a second costume, right? So right now he's costume 1. That's what he looks like. But there is a costume 2, which if you click on it, it'll show you what it is, and actually it changed him to the other costume, which, as you might imagine, right, if I kind of do this quickly, does that not kind of look a little bit more like he's running? If I was able to sort of alternate between those two costumes, that might actually be kind of nice. Right? So, okay. Let's see. So I'm going to go back to the scripts for a second here. So now, if you make your own character, right, or if you import something, a photo or something, you're only going to have one costume, which is whatever you imported. Although I am going to show you how to alter it. But the ones that are preloaded in here have other costumes. And it's okay to use them and to use the other costumes. Now, if it's something you didn't create, it's fine to use it, I won't necessarily sort of give you points for that because obviously if the costume was already there, you didn't make it. But it's perfectly fine to use them. So, all right, so let's take advantage of the fact that it says 2 costumes. And let me go back to the script. So I think when I hit the right arrow, it might be kind of nice for him to switch views. In other words, with his legs, right? To say, the other costume, if I alternate, would be sort of nice. So if you go to looks, the looks tab, this is how, as you might imagine, you're going to do change the appearance of things, change the appearance of your sprites. And there's lots of things you can do, and I'll let you go and play around with those things, right? But one thing you can do is change costumes. And in fact, if I just grab next costume, drag that, and attach that over here, what this is going to say is when the right arrow is pressed, move, and then switch costumes. And then if you hit it again, move and switch costumes, and move and switch costumes. So if I do this now, when I hit the right arrow, look what happens to the cat. Right? It looks better, right? Let me move him back for a second. So it's doing exactly the script. It's saying move and then switch costume. Move, switch costume. Move, switch costume. And when you do it fast, I'm holding it. I mean, he legit looks like he's running now, right? That's better, right? I mean, I don't want to get too excited about this stupid cat, right? But that's definitely an improvement. That's great. And how easy was that? It took 1 extra piece. All right, well, let's address our other issue, which is that when the left arrow is pressed, it kind of looks like he's, right? So let me do it for you one more time. When the left arrow is pressed, it just sort of looks like he's floating back. And I think he should actually maybe more so be facing left, right? He should maybe spin around. So how do I do that is a question, right? So you can do it with a costume. I mean, if I think about motion, right, I could say, well, when I'm hitting the left arrow, I sort of want to spin around, right? I want to sort of point in the opposite direction. So to the left is the 90 degrees, right? So now if I move to the right, I'm doing this. If I move to the left, right. Okay, so that didn't quite work. Let me move him back. Okay. All right, so that wasn't quite what we wanted, right? So why did that happen? So if you spin the character, right? If I say point, that says face to the left, or spin, point in that direction. Well, that spun him upside down, which wasn't quite what I wanted, right? So let me get rid of that, right? So that wasn't not quite, right? So let me get him back to upright. Point him back to the right. Okay, right. So that wasn't quite it, right? And just play around, right? You're going to do some experimenting and think about, oh, okay, well that wasn't quite what I wanted. I just sort of wanted him to face left, right? So if I look through these, I don't think. Okay, so then maybe I say, oh, all right, it's more of a looks thing that I wanna do, and just scan through these and see if some of these sound like they might be something that would help you. So when I'm looking, it's okay. I can switch to a different costume. It's fine, but I don't quite get. I don't see it, right? So I can switch costumes. So maybe, okay, let's see. So costumes. Well, right now, these are the only 2 costumes he has. So you might say, well, maybe I should make a new costume for him. Right? I could probably do that. Yeah. So now you could, again, you sort of have options here of being able to, you could make something totally new. In other words, you could transform him into a completely different character. If I said, I'll click on this just to show you, right? There's a lot of things in here. Okay. Playing around with this, right? There's, I could turn him into a crab, for example, or a different kind of cat, or he's super cat now, or what, So you could say, okay, when you hit that arrow, switch to a different thing. That's probably not super realistic. All I really want is the old cat, but just reversed, right? So let me grab the original cat again. but I want to spin him or sort of reflect him over there. So if you come over here to the edit options, you might notice some things like that one, which is to say do a flip, right? Flip from left to right. You could do a flip upside down if you want, but I don't think we want to do that. That sort of creates a mirror image of the cat, which I think is kind of what I want here. Yeah? All right. So, and you might want to name this something. So if I, oh, here's where it is. So maybe I want to call this like, left cat or something like that, just to remind myself, oh, okay, that's what the cat should look like when he's facing left. And you can even add stuff, right? I don't want to completely ruin our friend here, but you can, I don't know, give him a hat or something if you want. You can paint. You could grab some other other item, right, and sort of include it. But if I just want to do a simple thing like make him have a little hat on, I think I can do that. Oh, I gotta grab the pencil, sorry. Okay, not the most festive of hats, but maybe I can, anyway, we'll call that good enough, I guess. Oh dear. Oh yeah, this will let me fill it. Probably not. Well, I can fill, oh okay, those are already filled in, but, oh okay, anyway, right, obviously, feel free to use your imagination, but I'll say, okay, I'm happy with my left-facing cat right now, called left cat, and if you want to simulate the other costume, right? This costume. I think it lets me. Oh, let me see if I can just duplicate. Right. Sorry, put that back up there. I can do the same. The other leg position. If I just rotate this guy the same way I did before, right? Now I have sort of left cat 1 and left cat 2. Oh, he doesn't have a hat. Okay, make him have a hat, I guess. This is how you spend hours and hours doing stuff. Okay. Right, so now when he runs left, I'm going to maybe want to alternate between these two costumes, right? And that'll sort of simulate him moving to the left. Okay, so I'm done with making my costumes. So now let me go back to the script one more time. So let's see. Now, next costume is going to be a bit of a challenge to use, right? Because I think if I try to do the same thing, I think a bad thing's going to happen, right? Which is that when I hit the right arrow, right, he's just rotating between, and even when I hit the left arrow, right, the hat is really adorable. He's just rotating through all 4 of his costumes. Oh, that's not quite what I wanted, is it? Right. So maybe I can't quite get away with the next costume thing. Instead, maybe I need to say, when I hit the right arrow, switch to costume 1. That's his regular right-facing costume. And then maybe I want to say move, and then maybe switch to, change that to costume 2. Whereas on this guy, I want to say when I want to hit the left, I want left cat and left cat 2. Okay, so let's see if that works. So when I hit the right arrow, I get right cat, and then you say, oh, wait a minute. And I get left cat, okay. But it didn't seem to toggle them anymore, right? So a good rule of thumb is whenever you think you kind of have things correct, but it's not quite showing you everything, it's because it's doing it too quickly. So again, if I want to allow for a little more time, put a little weight in here. So I think what's happening is that it's switching to costume 1, moving, and then switching to costume 2, and then it's doing it too quickly. So if instead I put a little weight in here, probably not that long, maybe 0.2 seconds or something like that. And put a little wait in here. It might wait, it'll wait for a second before showing the costume. So if I, so now if I hit right, now that's pretty good, I think. I'm hitting right, I'm hitting right, hitting right, it's running, running, running. If I hit left, it's running. It's a little hinky, right? Waits can be a little not fantastic. And oftentimes just because they're too long. So if I make that even smaller, 0.05 seconds, for example, I might have better luck. Okay, that's pretty good, right? That's gotten it back to kind of how it was. And then the left one also works with his with his two hats that aren't exactly the same. But anyway. Okay, so moral of story, right? Even if you import a celebrity to be in your game, you can do what we just did with the cat, right? With the costumes of just spinning your celebrity around, right? So, and in terms of how do you get the two different images? Well, I don't know, right? If you're really trying to go for an authentic look, maybe you can find two different images of, different leg positions, for example, or whatever it is. Maybe it's, things they're doing with their arms, And if you're putting yourself in the game, you can take obviously lots of pictures of yourself in different positions in order to simulate whatever it is you're doing. And the jump still works, right? Oh, good. Okay. So I think we'll call that the end of end of video 1 for the cat. But a lot of good stuff in here, and so try this, right? And maybe keep playing with it a little bit more, right? We didn't do anything for down, so maybe think about down is duck. I promise you, there's a way to do duck by making something. Maybe if I duplicated this, right, and I say this should be ducking, or duck cat, which sounds funny. I promise you, think about it and play around. You all are good with various Photoshop-y type tools. You can make the image bigger, you can make the image smaller, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can probably figure out a way to morph this cat into a cat that's ducking. And then maybe that's what you want to do when you hit the down arrow. Okay? So the point is that there's many, many options here. So play around with it a little bit. The next video, I'll start the main thing and the main project that I'll do in these sample videos, which is a simple kind of ball bouncing, kind of like breakout type of the game where you're trying to like bust blocks by hitting a ball with a paddle, stuff like that. That's just sort of a good standard game where there'll be a lot more things to do with timing and whatnot. So stay tuned for that video. And this script, even though it's not that big here, I'll save this. Oh, I'm sorry. The last thing I should do then is say, how do you save stuff? So when you're working on your game, or even just these sample things, you probably don't want to redo it every time, right? So how do you save stuff? So just like you normally would, go to File, either from here or from up there, and hit Save, or you can do Save As, I guess. And I made a folder on my desktop, called Scratch Projects. That you should probably just make a folder somewhere, wherever you want. But mine's on my desktop, so let me go to that. In Scratch Projects. Okay, so wherever you want to store your work, maybe just make a separate folder for it. And I didn't want to save it as Scratch Projects. And just give it a name, right? So this is cat moving. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. The extension that it saves things is an SB2 extent. Well, let me save it. So if I hit save, okay, then it saved it as that. And if I say, all right, well, where is it? So it's in my Scratch Projects folder, and here it is. The extension is an SB2 extension. I don't know, Scratch something version 2. So this is a perfectly reasonable file. It even recognizes it as a Scratch file. At least on mine it does. So if I close Scratch, right, and say, all right, I'm done with Scratch. But if I saved it, if I just double click on it like any other file, it'll hopefully just open right back up in Scratch, right? And so this is the stuff we just did. So it's all still there, and now we can add to it and whatever. Obviously, when you're doing this for real, you want to be saving very frequently, and making sure you sort of have a maybe backup copy every now and then stored somewhere else, maybe on a flash drive, or email it to yourself every now and then just to make sure in case you lose some of your edits, you don't have to go retrace a million steps. Okay, and so whenever you submit stuff through Canvas, or if you're emailing me because you have a question or something, this is very easy. It's not a big file at all. So just attach this file, and that way I'll be able to open up your project and say, oh, okay, you're stuck on whatever, and I can give you some advice that way. So, okay, so that's the end of this video. Stay tuned for the next one.